Now, whether you've been riding your bike through the winter or you're pulling it out from hibernation, it will likely need a bit of a tune-up. You can think of it as TLC for your bike, getting it running smoothly, efficiently, and of course, safely. Now, obviously, your bike will need a proper and thorough overhaul from time to time, but you can keep on top of a few key areas with a quick 20-minute tune-up. Now, best practice to start any bike tune-up is to have a nice, clean bike. Now, how much you need to clean your bike depends on how recently you cleaned your bike and how filthy it is. So hopefully it's not too dirty, in which case you can watch our 5-minute bike wash video, which I will throw you to at the end of this video, so hang tight for that. In the meantime, why not head down below this video, hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to GTN, and you can hit that bell icon so you'll be notified when some of our future videos come out. But to start the bike tune-up, I'm actually gonna start with an inspection of this thing here, the seat post, which I know it sounds quite odd to do an inspection of the seat post. It doesn't need to be performed on every bike tune-up, but don't do what I did and completely neglect it and end up with some issues. Now, carbon on carbon, carbon seat post, carbon frame, isn't such an issue, but they do have a tendency to slip. So you want to make sure that it's got some carbon grip paste in there. So take the seat post out, have a check of it and make sure that that's being applied to it and keep on top of that. The issues come though mostly when we've got carbon post into an alloy frame or an alloy post into a carbon frame, because they have a tendency to bond to each other. So if you're not checking up on them regularly and making sure that there's enough grease in there, that can happen, which is far from ideal. So yeah, just take the seat post out every so often, keep an eye on it and keep it well greased. Okay, moving on to the next area, probably the first place that I normally start, and that is the chain. Now this is quite a key area in your bike's transmission because it connects the front part of your drivetrain to the rear part, and actually is what converts your pedal power into that forward movement. And the chain is made up of hundreds of parts. We've got the outer plates, the inner plates, the rivets, etc. And that needs maintaining and keeping on top of. So in some cases that may mean just simply a quick clean of the chain using some degreaser. And I would really recommend using a chain cleaning tool. It makes your life a heck of a lot easier. It's a lot quicker and it can really thoroughly clean the chain. In other cases, it may mean actually fully replacing the chain if it is stretched or worn out. And that is exactly what I need to do today. So depending on the chain you're using, you may be able to remove it using a power link if you have one on your chain, or you can use a chain tool like this one, as I'm going to do right now. All right, so that's the chain off, but before I whack the new one on, that was actually a really good opportunity for me to take a look at the Jockey Wheels, given that they're nicely exposed right now. But whether you are taking the chain off or not, it is actually really important you do keep on top of these, keep them well maintained and keep them nice and clean. They do have a tendency to get rather clogged up given their location on the bike at the rear and quite low down close to the road. That's not only going to affect your efficiency, but also the wear of your components and your chain. So all we want to do is clean that down. We're going to use a bit of degreaser on the Jockey Wheels, and then you'll rub that down with a rag or a brush. Or you can take that one step further and actually use an Allen key or a hex key and remove the individual Jockey Wheels and give them a good thorough clean. Now this is also a good opportunity to drop the rear wheel out and clean the cassette. Again, the cogs collector that can reduce efficiency, affect shifting, and reduce the lifespan of components. Depending on the state of it and how long you're having to spend on other parts, you can just leave the cassette installed, use some degreaser, and brush it off fairly clean. If, like me, you like the satisfaction of a fully clean cassette, it doesn't take much to take it off with a chain whip and fully douse it in some degreaser and reinstall. It's weirdly therapeutic, or maybe that's just me. Right, now back to the chain. I've got a brand new chain here ready to install, and I'm going to measure this one up against my old chain. Now, providing your old chain was the correct length, you want to match the length with the new chain, or just a fraction shorter because the old chain may have slightly stretched. Then you're ready to install this chain, and once that's done, just clean the new chain off because they tend to come with a protective greasy coating, and then apply your own chain oil to get it running nice and smoothly. Right, now that that is all installed, it's time to check over the gears, make sure that they're still running smoothly, or perhaps you already knew that they needed a little bit of tweaking already. On mechanical gears, you can just use the barrel adjuster on the rear mech to just slightly adjust the gears and get them well trimmed. On electronic gears, you can pop them into micro adjustment mode. The aim here is to get them running as smoothly as possible, efficiently as possible, and that means as little noise as possible coming from the drivetrain, and that will hopefully mean that the gears are well trimmed and shifting really well. But now on to the brakes. A disc brake or rim brake, we have a few things to cover here. Are they clean? Are they aligned properly? And are they worn out or not? Now, if they're dirty, this can obviously affect braking performance, as well as maybe bringing some rather unpleasant sounds with it. So just make sure that you wash them down, clean them off. Do be wary if you do have disc brakes not to contaminate the disc brake pads in the process. It can also be quite easy to knock and misalign your brakes. So on some rim brakes, it's quite easy just to, by hand, push them back into place and realign them. And ideally, what you're after on any type of brakes is an equal distance from the brake to the rim or brake to the disc on either side. On some bikes, particularly on TT bikes, you can't adjust them by hand, so in which case you can use these adjustment screws on the side and just tweak them to get them set up perfectly. On disc brakes, you'll want to release the bolts that are holding the caliper in place, hold down the disc, that's going to realign the caliper, and then retighten the bolts. But you may just need to replace the brakes after all, in which case, get some new pads. I need to do that on my front brakes for sure. So you can just take them out using the bolts on the side. On disc brakes, slightly different, and then just replace them, realign them, and get them set up. Now, a final port of call for a quick 20-minute bike tune-up is your tyres. Now, you want to check they're not excessively worn, cracked, or maybe have any wounds or cuts to them. Now, I know it is possible to patch up some tyres, particularly with tubeless tyres, but if you're observing your tyres and you see a rather large cut to it, I'd say it's probably time for some new tyres, not just for performance, but also for your own sanity and safety, because there's nothing worse and more annoying than having to replace an inner tube and fix a puncture on the side of the road. Now, actually, over the winter, and also for a lot of my training, I tend to opt for a slightly harder wearing set of tyres that are slightly more puncture resistant. I also often go for a slightly wider tyre for increased comfort. So just have a look over your tyres and consider what type you're going for the time of the year. Now, obviously, there are some other areas that do need some attention from time to time too, such as your bearings, but I would say that these fall into a slightly larger and longer maintenance that you perform maybe slightly less regularly. But I am talking here mostly about your headset bearings and your bottom bracket bearings. And normally this would just require dropping out your forks, taking the crankset out, and giving some attention to the bearing cups, cleaning them off, drying them off, and reapplying some grease. In some cases, you may need to replace the bearings, particularly if your bike has been sat dormant for a while or you've been riding in some poor weather. But if you do only have 20 minutes for a quick bike tune-up, then I would really recommend taking a look at the seat post. Not necessarily every single time, but it's a good idea to keep an eye on it. Take a look at the chain, the jockey wheels, the cassette, make sure the gears are trimmed in, look at the brakes, and also look at the tyres. Now, if you do that regularly, you hopefully won't need to replace the components quite as much, and hopefully won't be needing to replace them every single time. And in fact, you may be able to scoot over some of those areas quite quickly because they need very little maintenance. Well, I hope that has been helpful for you today and you've learned a little something. If you've enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up, give us a like for this video, and don't forget to follow GTN on social media.